was smiling a lot this morning because what I had written down was like, gee, God knows what's going on all the time with all the different areas, and they tie together. It's pretty exciting. Communion, a time for remembering what Jesus did. A few weeks ago, Jorge talked about serving, which is an act of love. That's what he called it. And he said it was a reflection of who you are as a person. And I thought, oh, that's right. That's what I want to do. And so I thought about that and mulled it over. And serving, it is an act of love, however we do it. It is a reflection of who you are as a person, however you serve. And it looks different for everyone, what God's called them to do, and even what you feel comfortable with, how you're wired to do it, what you just do naturally sometimes, and sometimes you just do because it needs to be done. My favorite line is, no one likes to clean the toilets, but it needs to be done. So someone does it, hopefully. At communion time, we remember and we recall what Jesus did. His acts of love, reflections of who he was as a person. And when the youth get together, I'm sure at times there's discussions about some of the stuff that he did. If you think about it from a person, say, who comes from a viewpoint of never having heard about it, there's some pretty amazing things that Jesus did. And you have to think, what, why, how, whatever. And he was in a culture where still, even within that culture, it seems strange. But he made a difference in what he did. And we too can use him as an example, and in the power of the Holy Spirit, we too can make a difference. And as Jorge said when he preached, he said, whatever it is, just do it. We can think of his act of love. Jesus did it for you, and he did it for me. He did it whether we're old, whether we're young, whether we know about him, whether we don't know about him, whether we've turned our backs on him. It doesn't matter. He did it, and for those that we would personally call the easy cases, and for those what we would call the hard cases, people that you think, oh my gosh, they're just never going to change. Or you think, oh yeah, that makes sense. For those that we would call lovable, and for those that we would call unlovable. And for each of us, that means something different. For someone that Pocky might say, if I was God, not a chance. And then Mike sitting there, he'd have another person altogether. Or he'd say, yeah, they should be in. It doesn't matter to God. Are you sitting there right now and thinking, I'm one of those easy cases, or I'm one of those hard cases? It doesn't matter. Jesus went to the cross in obedience to God's plan. He died, and then he was resurrected for each one. So we could be reconciled to God our Father, so we could have peace, whether we're young, whether we're a teen, whether we're old, whether we know him personally or not. If we accept what he did, we can do that, and we can spend eternity with him. Bruce talked this morning about what heaven's going to be like. We all have different pictures. But the point is because of that, what Jesus did, we all have the opportunity to spend heaven and actually find out afterwards what it was like. The church is not about perfect people. This church is not about perfect people. Mitch just talked about it. We didn't rehearse this. It's just the way it is. Jesus didn't come to love and to serve because we were perfect. Far from it. None of us are. None of us can say we've attained. Communion. Remember Jesus' acts of love for each one of us. Now I'd like the elders to come up, and what we'll do is we'll come up after they've kind of set up their different stations, and we'll take the elements. There's the bread, and for those of you who need to be gluten-free, we have that option. And we'll also take the juice, go back to our seats, and remember, hang on to them. And then once everyone's served, I'll pray, and then we can take and eat and drink together.